Before we begin, thank you very much to the Swansea 13 for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for the support. Always appreciated. I say it every time because it's true every time. The Patreon is the reason I am able to keep doing this every single day for everybody. So anyone who pitches in, even if it's just a buck, or in this case, £1 a month, I do appreciate. It allows me to keep making videos for you guys, allows me to keep improving what I am doing, upgrading the setup and everything. And yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing so. All right. With the last Hasbro live stream, we actually dispelled the fan theory that the 13 molds would not be repainted or reused. So, the original idea was that they wanted to keep these molds special so they didn't have any repaints or retools in mind when they made them. But of course they're open to retools and repaints because it's a toy company and Transformers are expensive to produce and engineer, so getting more uses out of a mold, they are always down for. So now that means we get to do my favorite thing, which is wildly speculate. And we come up with whatever we want for the 13 Prime toys to be redone into. This has so many directions we could go in. There's a lot that could be covered through this. So we're going to go through the 13 and figure out what the repaints or retools should be, what the ones are most likely, or what I would like them to be. And the fun part is going to be toward the end when we run out of molds that we've already seen, because as we've noticed, they throw some curveballs. We'll get this one out of the way right now. We are not concerned with Vector Prime because he's already a retool. They've gotten their extra uses out of this mold already. If they wanted to, there are repaints from Cybertron they could use. There's the gold version from the multi-pack. There is the brown version that was based on the last Autobot. I'd rather the gold one, honestly, but it's whatever. We're not terribly concerned about Vector Prime. Let's get into the ones that are completely fresh, brand new molds that we really do need to figure out some other use for, like Prima. Now, Prima, thankfully, is easy. I mean, a lot of these molds are easy in that some of them just have other versions you can repaint them into. Prima is no different in that his original G1 appearance had a different torso than what we've seen from this version of the toy, but also a very different color scheme. And I, for one, would really like this color scheme. I would really like them to offer the toy this way. Because, you know, I have Five Faces of Darkness nostalgia. I watched that a lot as a kid. Which also makes me kind of hope that this ends up being a retool as well. We do have a leaked listing for a Sentinel pack, and we're not entirely sure what it is. Just that Sentinel is on the way in one way or another. And I'm hoping it's this one from the flashback in G1. We still have yet to see this version. It's he turns into a truck. You know, that's vaguely a truck on Prima. That would take some retooling, I will admit. But hey, this one's long overdue, and I need to see it. I need this toy to finally see light of day. We're done pretty much anything else at this point in G1 animation. DevCon has toys. All the female Autobots have toys. I really like this design. I will never stop pushing for this design to happen. But yeah, the Prime is kind of easy. I mean, we also have Solless Prime, and Solless has a couple of easy options as well, one of them being the Mistress of Flame. If you want to get some IDW in there, okay, that's fine. I'm never going to object to a little bit of IDW love in the Transformers toy line. However, I would argue that this one is maybe a little bit small in stature for the Mistress of Flame. She is supposed to be a much larger character. So that's the only downside. I think some people have speculated on that one simply because hammer. And while there's other aspects of the design that would make sense of this, it might be a little bit of a stretch just because hammer. You know who I would want? You know who I'd want? I'd want Firestar. I mentioned how the female Autobots have toys, but they're not good toys. They all have the same mold. It's not a great mold. Power of the Primes was an interesting time. I think we've got enough female molds going around at this point that we could do something with those teams. Like, I feel like we could go back, touch on those Autobots from the Search for Alpha Trion, And we might actually be able to give everyone a unique mold now that looks a lot closer to how they're supposed to look. And that would mean, you know, Firestar would have to be some kind of truck. You know, Solless is some kind of truck. I would like to see it. I mean, I would like to see it. I just like getting. I like giving the female Transformers a better run than just, oh, they're all the same mold. Alpha Trion is one that everyone's already kind of expecting. Oh, we'll just get one with a beard later on. And you know what? That's fine, but how many times have we gotten that? Frankly, the Scourge retool that we got not too long ago, I think is still a really good Alpha Trion. I don't necessarily think it needs to go beyond that. Now, the trick here might not be to go older, it might be to go younger. Remember, he does have a gimmick in his torso to remove the Autobot symbol to be used the way you see here. And that could actually lead them to do Alpha Trion as A3, the Autobot who was like one of the revolutionaries when the Quintessons were still on the planet. And that would actually open the door for Beta to also get a toy, you know, and that could be another potential repaint for Solless. You know, now we're getting into interesting territory here. Remember, it's Aerial Bot season. If there was ever a time to do these, it's during Aerial Bot season. They're just always going back to the past. It's just a kind of a gimmick that they have. But I think that's also the reason why they went with the younger Alpha Trion as the individual release. It's because of that connection that's going on. That way you can have your own like War Dawn collection. There was one more idea, and it was pitched during the Mark Q&A that came out. And that was Logos Prime. And that's going off of the vehicle mode having a similar shape. If the wings were larger, I think this would work. If you added tail fins to the top, I think this would work. Obviously, this is one of those heavy retooling things, but as long as they're producing primes, they might as well go back and produce other primes, like Sentinel Prime, Logos Prime. You know, that was the question in the Q&A, and I kind of agree with that. Maybe this is time, you know, and this would be a super weird way of setting up to have a Cybertron Soundwave to go with your brand new Cybertron Sideways toy that's about to come out. I like the idea anyway. I know it's a hard fit, but I think it works in a weird way. All right, Alchemist Prime again, easy option here. Yeah, just repaint him the way he looked in Cyberverse. You know, make Macadam. Simple as that. Make Macadam. Obviously, it's not going to have his real alt mode from the actual cartoon, because that alt mode is intentionally impossible. But a simple enough repaint, maybe a retool to get the head to be a little bit closer, and you've got a really nice looking homage to what was actually a really fun character in that show. I actually really liked Macadam in that show. If you want something a little bit more out there, now, the fun of this one is there's a lot of room to do things with it, you know, because we have the faux chest. Basically, that lets us get away with whatever kind of homage that we want. Something in my head saw the truck mode and the squat body and went, I wouldn't mind if IDW Swerve got another run as like a deluxe mini-bot type situation. The only reason that's not happening is because we're already going to get a brand new... We have the Gears mold now. We have a brand new Gears, so obviously we are going to get Swerve at some point. It's just going to be the G1 version. I want the IDW, please. And I feel like I feel like this is a little bit of a rough fit, but I will admit, like, I'm low on ideas for what you could do with him. There's plenty though. Like, there's got to be others out there. I'm just not thinking of them right now, but I don't know. I went with favoritism on this one. Megatronus, I think everyone kind of has the exact same idea. It's kind of inspired by the fact that he does have that little Megatron barrel that you can mount on him somewhere. And that would be IDW Megatron. Now that we have listings in the computer for a comic book edition for Studio Series, that does open up a lot of doors. And an Autobot Megatron, an IDW Megatron, has been a really popular request for Hasbro to do for a very, very long time, all the way back to Combiner Wars, where people were asking if the new Megatron toy they were producing could have an Autobot symbol. Well, it didn't. But this opens up an avenue, and I think it's a really, really cool avenue. Absolutely something that could be done. Given that some of those listings go all the way out to 2027, I'd like it to happen earlier than that, but hey, if IDW Megatron is a plan, I'm down. I am down for it. We have Onyx Prime, who also suffers from the same issue of, well, he's extremely unique, but he has easy repaints because in IDW, he appeared in multiple color schemes. This Deathsaurus looking gold and blue, I think looks really, really good, and it's one of his more prominent designs, so that wouldn't surprise me in the least if that one gets done. I prefer this number with the dark gray, the gunmetal, and the dark purple. Like, that looks really, really cool to me. Those are the easy ones. Those are likely what's going to be happening. However, we also have options that go a little bit outside the box, so it would take a heavy retooling. I honestly wouldn't mind a Predaking out of it. You know, we need a Predaking of some kind out there. It's been a while. It has been a while, and it's still a super cool design. I have it over here on my other monitor. That's why I'm like darting all the way around. But no, like, again, heavy retooling, absolutely. But this could absolutely be done. Now, what do you do with our Titan? This is kind of tricky because on one hand, it's an Optimus Prime, and there's very few characters in Transformers who have more repaint options than Optimus Prime. You'd have to be a Seeker to top him, or Sideswipe. That happened. But with this one, it seems like you have this whole gambit of options you could go through. You know, this could be some weird, like, what if Ultra Magnus kept the Matrix and got an upgrade from it like Rodimus did. You could have traditional Nemesis colors. You could go Shattered Glass. You could go... It'd be super weird, but yeah, Toxitron there. Let's throw him out there too, just to have fun. There's something in me that looks at this design and kind of screams, maybe not make it such a simple repaint. I feel like because it's Star Convoy, it's the 13th Prime, it's a Titan, I feel like there is some reverence in this mold that would get lost if they were to actually do it as just a Nemesis Prime, an Ultra Magnus, you know, whatever. So I think you need something that's just a little bit more interesting and a little bit more up there. So the idea that came to my mind, this is the crazy one, but I love it. What about Primus? And not the planet Primus, this Primus, the one that was his original toy depiction, the gold Rodimus Prime. That body type you could absolutely retool into like a take on Rodimus Prime. You could retool because it's a faux chest. Remember, faux chest, new head, new chest. And like even then, like even the battle station mode starts making sense because now it's like in Marvel where like Primus was like at the core of Cybertron. You could just see his face buried in the wall. This would kind of be like a prime, like almost like a shrine of Primus, you know, like you have like that. I think is the coolest option here. And while, yeah, it's not the Primus people want, it does put Primus out on a toy shelf in a really interesting way. I think it's a cool idea. I don't know if it's something that would resonate with everybody, but I thought it was a lot of fun. I would have fun with this. And I would love this just for the customizers out there to do a proper Rodimus out of it. Now, this boy. This caught everyone off guard, right? Like, nobody expected him to basically be a modern Pretender, right? No one called this. So my Cronis is by far the most unique design amongst any of the primes. It's a super cool deluxe. It does a lot of things in an interesting way. So obviously we got to figure out what to do for him. And I kind of already mentioned it because really he's not a pretender. He's a mega pretender because his shell transforms. He can ride and interact with the shell, which means that if he's going to get a retool of some kind, it's probably going to be Vroom. Now, the inner robot, the actual Cronis, that one might be completely skipped so that they could focus on like a tiny little car transformer that works the same way. And then obviously the body is going to get retooled to accommodate the different shape. That said, you could get away with it on the vehicle mode. The front end of the motorcycle shares a similar design to the one that's on my Cronis. Even like the hands, like look at his hands. See the extensions that come off the back of his fists? That's what my Cronis does. I feel like if they claim that there is no like retool options in any of these, that they didn't have any repaints in mind, I feel like this might be a difference in it. And I would go for this, just on the novelty of it's a modern pretender that works the way a pretender's supposed to. This could be cool. I could absolutely see my Cronis being a test run for a modern run of pretenders. Like, you imagine my Cronis's gimmick and engineering upscaled in budget to Voyager class? You could do it. This could be a starting point for that, and I'm super excited about that. So hopefully my Cronis does well, and he's well received, because that's such a cool idea. Now comes the ones that we don't have actual toys images for, but we can work with what we got. So, for instance, Quintis Prime, who is most likely going to be like the tentacly guy you see here. Now, we know that these are not entirely accurate. We've had designs come out that weren't exactly correct, but we're going to work with it. So, for him, Quintis, no matter what you're dealing with the tentacles, you're dealing with the multi-arm thing that he's got going on there. And I've said it before, and I'm going to cement this as my official prediction. This is how we get Botanica. Especially because it's a deluxe, especially because it's the only other body type that I think matches either of her forms. This is her plant mode, not a robot mode, but I would call her robot mode impossible. This one, between tentacles and 4 arms, I think is actually going to be close. I think this will count. So if they can do it, this is what I want them to do. Amalgamus is another weird one. Because you have to get by the fact that, like, he's supposed to represent multi-changers, shifters, you know, transformers aren't restricted to one alt mode, but he's only going to be a Voyager class toy, which that creates a lot of issues. So this one I'm genuinely in the dark how they're actually going to get by, how they're actually going to make this work. I'm penciling in Quick Switch right now as a prediction, because Quick Switch is far more simple than 6-shot. It is designed to be very, very simple, and like letting the accessories and the 5mm ports do a lot of the work on these alt modes. It's a long shot because it's still a lot of engineering for a Voyager toy, but it's all I got. Like, I don't know how else you're going to depict this character correctly if it's not doing something akin to this. And like I said, I'm not expecting this to be Quick Switch based, but I'm expecting something that can be retooled into a multi-change toy. That takes me to Nexus Prime, who is also super confusing. He is, again, a Voyager when I really think Leader or bigger was necessary here. I had him pegged for, like, Commander or Titan, because he's supposed to be the root of all combiners. You know, how do you get a combiner into a Voyager budget? Okay. He has to have some kind of combining element, but he can't be too complicated. Right, so the only idea I had, the only thing that I think works and you could get away with is Wing Waver. Because if you're going to do any of the multiforce, you have to do the leader, at the very least. The leader with the most common partner. This, I think, would convey at least some element of combination to Nexus, while still producing something that looked unique. And then, yeah, this would be the retool I would go with. The most you're going to get out of this, if it's not going to be like arms and legs pop off and become simple vehicles, then you're just out of luck. There is not going to be anything outside of like a Power Core Combiner homage you're going to get a retool into. But I want a Nexus that retools into something like this, because it's the start of a Multiforce. I don't know if they'd have a combination, but at the very least, I wouldn't mind the character being out there just to test the waters a little bit. And that saves the biggest for last. That is Lege Maximo. We know he's going to be a leader class toy now, so we got some budget to work with, but he's not going to be gigantic either. Which is a shame, because the best ideas I have for him would be gigantic. Again, you are dealing with this more demonic Transformer shape, the tentacles, like... This is another one that's going to be very, very tricky for them to come up with a retool of, no matter what they do with the toy. And I only have one idea. And that idea would be Dark Nova or Star Giant, depending on which form would be easier for them to acclimate to whatever the toy would eventually be. I'm going simply on size, tentacles, the Star Convoy connection, even though you can see how big he is compared to Star Convoy. He's basically like Baby Unicron. He's essentially Baby Unicron. That's pretty much what they got going on here. But I'm also at a loss as to who else could fit that body. Anything else would require such heavy retooling, I'd never be able to guess at this point. Now, the only reason I do this video now is because I was in the mood to do it. I was in the mood to kind of get some ideas out there. But I will admit, we don't know a lot of how these are going to look yet. Meaning, I'm speculating in the dark here. And I didn't want to wait a year for all the others to be revealed or leaked in order to do this. So, we get to play with the idea now, and we leave a few others till later. By then, we'll probably find out that a few of these have been or will be repainted or retooled. So, let me know what you think of the ideas in the comments below. Please feel free to put in your own ideas, because obviously I don't think of everything. And that'll do it for today. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.